Everyone, as 5G is being rolled out across the globe, 5G handsets haven't yet taken over the market, especially when it comes to cheaper devices. The Redmi Note 9T is one of the cheapest 5G phones that you can buy, and I was really curious to see what Xiaomi has included and what they haven't in order to get it to this price point. So if you're on a budget, is this the phone to buy to keep up with the times? I'm Angie for GS Marina, and this is our review of the Redmi Note 9T. Right from the get-go, while Xiaomi doesn't try to hide the budget nature of this device, it definitely seems nicely designed all the same. Though it has a plastic back and frame, the phone feels incredibly sturdy and rigid, and when we tried to bend it, it turned out that it has zero flex. At almost 200 grams, it's not that light for a phone of its size, probably thanks to the huge battery, and in general, it feels dense and reassuring. The Note 9T has a water-repellent coating on its innards, and has a Gorilla Glass 5 screen, so as far as durability goes, things look really promising. As for the front of the phone, there are some pretty thick bezels and a not-so-small punch hole, which makes it look like an older design. There's some discoloration around the punch hole, especially on lighter backgrounds, but it's not too intrusive. The Note 9T comes in either Nightfall Black or our Daybreak Purple color, and unlike the Note 9 5G, both of these colors have a textured finish on the back. This means that the phone doesn't get smudgy and greasy easily, and we also like the extra grip that it provides. The volume buttons are quite clicky, and right below them you'll find a power button that doubles as a fingerprint reader. It's fast and accurate, though as with all side-mounted readers, it has a tendency to pick up smudges and false reads that might slow it down. The Note 9T has a few legacy features like an IR blaster on the top of the phone and a headphone jack on the bottom. There's also an FM radio if you prefer that over Spotify. There's also NFC support for contactless payments and easy device pairing. The phone comes with 64 or 128 gigabytes of base storage and the option of expandable storage. The card tray has 3 slots, so you won't have to choose. Also, if you do choose to have 2 SIMs, the phone supports 2 concurrent 5G cellular connections. It also supports an extensive list of 5G bands, which is not always guaranteed. The Note 9T has a 6.53-inch IPS LCD with a Full HD resolution and a standard 60Hz refresh rate. It's an adequate screen, but far from impressive. The display managed 471 nits of brightness in the standard color mode, which was more than the advertised 450 nits, but it only goes up to 413 in the saturated color mode. It should be enough for decent sunlight legibility though. As far as color accuracy was concerned, we weren't exactly dazzled. Standard mode was more true to life than the saturated mode, but no matter what we tried, whites were bluish. The screen response time was also less than stellar, and we noticed some ghosting in fine text and fine UI elements when scrolling. Most LCD budget panels have this issue, but it's worth a mention. While the screen was mediocre, the speaker setup was surprisingly nice for the class. The phone has a stereo speaker setup using the amplified earpiece as a second channel. Loudness was good, but we noticed distortions at higher volumes. Vocals were clear, but overall the speakers lack fullness.
Oh, I'm wide awake, but you're my nightmare.
The phone sports the new MediaTek Dimensity 800U 5G, and it's only the second phone that we've seen with it. It performs similarly to phones with the Snapdragon 690, but phones with the Snapdragon 750G or 765G offer better CPU performance. The Redmi Note 9T offers plenty of power for everyday tasks and running most popular game titles. Where the phone really pulls its weight, and I mean that literally, is the massive 5000 mAh battery. It got an excellent 118 hours of endurance, and we were also happy to see that, in terms of power efficiency, the new chipset performs similarly as on the Realme 7 5G. Since this is new silicon, the consistency is really nice to see. Charging wasn't quite as impressive as the phone supports only up to 18 watts of power input, even though the charger is 22.5 watts itself. With it, the Note 9T got from 0 to 33% in half an hour, which is typical for Xiaomi's current budget lineup. The Note 9T has Android 10 with MIUI 12 on top. It's not the latest Android version available, but still, MIUI 12 offers most of the proprietary Xiaomi features baked in, so you won't find yourself missing many things while Android 11 is slowly being rolled out. MIUI 12 has an unusual notification shade style that's heavily iOS inspired, with notifications and quick toggles separated. Of course, if you don't like it, you can switch back to a more standard Android style. There's a lot more customization than that, and you can change almost every aspect that you'd want to. You can hide the hole punch, choose smoother animations, or choose between a simplified home screen and an app drawer. Even the battery settings menu has been revamped with a lot more options, from an ultra battery saver mode to adjusting the power draw of some individual apps. The Game Turbo has individual profiles you can set for each game, and a selection of features that should allow for better game performance. Even the camera UI has been switched up a bit, and you can rearrange camera modes and choose between color accents, or even adjust the shutter sound. As far as the triple camera setup goes, here you'll find a 48 megapixel main camera that captures shots at a default 12 megapixel, a 2 megapixel macro camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensor. During the day, photos had plenty of resolved detail and good contrast. Dynamic range was adequate and colors were on the warmer side but looked pleasing and were color accurate enough for our taste. The noise processing was balanced and sharpness was pleasant, though we did notice some banding in the sky. If you choose to snap shots with a full 48 megapixel resolution, you won't find much of a difference in detail or quality, so just save yourself the storage and use the default mode. As far as portraits are concerned, the Note 9T captured good shots with proficient subject separation and natural-looking blur. The 2 megapixel macro camera was a pain to use. It takes around 6 or 7 tries to get a sharp photo, and even when there's enough light, contrast isn't great. For comparison, these are the close-up shots you'd get if you just use the main snapper. In low light, the Note 9T continues to perform well despite the budget class. Detail is adequate, and even though it had quite a bit of noise, it wasn't too bad. The AI mode was actually helpful here and restored some of the highlights. Of course, if you want even brighter evening shots, just use the night mode. It brightens the entire scene, restores highlights, and generally looks better than the regular mode. You'll find much less detail in these shots because of the heavy noise reduction, but they're more than good enough for social media. The Note 9T can record videos up to 4K at 30 FPS. Footage has a solid and stable frame rate, and quality was decent, especially for the class. Colors are subdued but not dull, and detail is high, though far from perfect. We saw some noise, but the only issue that actually concerned us was the limited dynamic range. That said, even in low light, video capture was good despite the occasional frame stutters during testing. Full HD video has a lot more noise and weird fringing and moving objects, so we wouldn't recommend it unless you decide to switch on EIS. The stabilization works great, even if it crops quite a bit of the frame. The 13 megapixel selfie camera performed surprisingly well, and photos had plenty of detail and sharpness. The focus depth was liberal, so it was easy to capture an in-focus shot. There's even some natural depth of field in the shots, though you can also use the selfie portrait mode, which was quite competent. There was a lot of noise and lower lighting conditions, but it still stood its ground. This phone has great battery life, a solid build, a durable back, a good screen for the class, and even 5G. But it's far from perfect. The Note 9T doesn't have an ultra-wide camera. The charging speed is limited to 18 watts, and there are a host of other sacrifices that come with cramming 5G into a budget phone. It makes more sense to spend a little more money and buy something like the Xiaomi Mi 10i 5G, or ditch the 5G entirely and get the Poco X3 NFC. Now, if 5G on a budget is your highest priority, then this phone is a good buy. But if 5G at a super low price isn't that important to you, this phone doesn't have the best value, and you should take a look at some other phones before you get this one. Thank you for watching, stay safe, and I'll see you guys next time.